The alert arrived over the quantum comms lattice at precisely 2400 hours ship time. Ambassador Kate Morrison was reviewing trade accords in her office aboard New Geneva Station when her aide shoved the door open without knocking. The young man looked drained, his hands trembling as he offered a slim data slate. "Ma'am, an emergency from the Galactic Council," he said. "Priority Alpha. They require an immediate reply from Earth's highest diplomatic representative." Kate set her coffee down and took the slate. For 12 years, she had served as Earth's chief envoy to other species. She had bargained with arthropod delegates who spoke in chemical cues, with beings of energy who conversed in shifting radiance, and with martial cultures who resolved disputes through ritual combat. Still, she had never seen a priority alpha issued directly by the Galactic Council. The holographic emitter in her office flared, though she had not touched a control. That takeover was the first sign this was not an ordinary diplomatic message. The Council had hijacked her systems remotely, an action that, under Earth's safeguards, should have been impossible. A vast figure coalesced in the room. High Chancellor Vexar of the Zepyrian Empire filled the projection, towering close to 3 meters. His scales ran from deep violet to near black where the light struck them. 4 lidless eyes bored into Kate with the cold focus of a predator appraising prey. Smaller images blinked into being behind him. Kate recognized the faces from dossiers. Chancellor Clix of the Insectoid Collective, her compound eyes glittering like gems. The drifting presence of Luminina Prime, mouthpiece for the Lightbearers. General Thra of the Draonis Legions, his reptilian face crisscrossed with scars. 12 species were represented, each a voice for a major power within known space. "Ambassador Morrison of Humanity," Vexar intoned, his words mediated through the translator with mechanical clarity. "You will listen closely. This message is being transmitted to your home world and all human colonies. There must be no ambiguity in our intent." Kate stayed seated, palms folded on her desk, a practiced stillness about her. She had discovered that showing fear in front of predators surrendered leverage before talks began. "I'm listening, High Chancellor," she replied. "However, I must note that commandeering our communications infrastructure without consent is an act of aggression under galactic law." A collective sound, perhaps laughter, came from several delegates. General Thra's bifurcated tongue darted out as if tasting the air, a motion Kate knew signified amusement among his people. "Galactic law," Vexar repeated, the phrase seeming to leave an acrid aftertaste. "Curious that you invoke law, Ambassador. It is your species' repeated breaches of order that have brought us to this juncture." The High Chancellor began to pace within his projection. For the last century, humans have expanded into 17 sectors previously marked neutral. You have erected military bases in territories where arms were forbidden. You have meddled in local disputes and assisted factions with weapons and advisors, disrupting stability and violating treaties those systems relied upon for generations. For decades, that matter was none of your concern. Most recently, your fleets were caught conducting unauthorized probes within Council territory itself. Kate's expression stayed composed, though inside a sharp, familiar anger stirred. It was the same fury she had known as a child when schoolyard bullies tried to trap her. The same drive that had carried her through law school, through the diplomatic corps, through countless negotiations where aliens dismissed humans as lesser newcomers. "Human aggression," said Chancellor Clix, her voice layered with the clicking undertone of her kind, "has reached a level that threatens the balance we have preserved for 3 millennia. Your people appear incapable of lasting peace. Your species wages war endlessly," added Luminina Prime, her luminous form pulsing with emphasis as the translator rendered her words. "Even among yourselves, conflict is your natural condition." Kate rose at last, stepping directly before Vexar's towering image. Even at full height, she barely reached his chest, but she knew posture and resolve carried more weight than stature. "And your judgment from this assessment?" she asked softly. "The Galactic Council has rendered a unanimous verdict," Vexar declared. "Humanity constitutes an intolerable threat to galactic order. Therefore, we demand the unconditional surrender of Earth and every human colony." The pronouncement hung heavy in the air. Kate felt her aide shift uneasily behind her, but she remained perfectly steady. Your terms? She asked, tone cool, as if discussing trade tariffs. General Thru's projection strode forward. Total disarmament of all human warships. Evacuation from every disputed sector. All colonies placed under council supervision. Governors from the council installed in every major human city. Human star travel restricted solely to sanctioned trade routes. In short, Vexar concluded, your species will remain under supervision until the council deems you capable of civilized conduct. Kate walked back to her desk, settled into her chair, and calmly sipped her coffee to buy a few seconds' thought. Around her, 12 alien powers waited for Earth's reply to a demand of absolute submission. And should we decline? She asked at last. The delegates exchanged wary looks. It was Luminina Prime who responded, her form glowing brighter with confidence. Your fleet consists of perhaps 200 combat-capable ships. The Council commands forces beyond your civilization's capacity to imagine. We have preserved peace in this galaxy for 3,000 years through strength. Resist, and you will be destroyed swiftly and utterly. Kate set her cup down with deliberate precision. She raised her eyes to Vexar's form, then let her gaze sweep over the assembled leaders. When she spoke, her voice was steady, measured. How long do we have to consider your demand? This is no negotiation, Vexar snapped. You have 72 standard hours to send acceptance. Any hesitation will be treated as defiance. Kate inclined her head slowly. Then, for the first time since the call began, she smiled. It was not her usual diplomatic smile, but something colder, sharper, a smile that made even Vexar shift uneasily. 72 hours, she echoed. We'll be in touch. With that, she cut the transmission herself, silencing the Council's protests mid-word. The images vanished, leaving only the hum of the station's systems. Her aides stared in disbelief. Ambassador, they just ordered our surrender. Shouldn't we alert Earth at once? The President must be told. Kate strode to the viewport overlooking Earth, the blue sphere hanging in the void. She was still smiling, that dangerous smile. Oh, the President already knows, she said quietly. It's time we make a call. Patch me through to Admiral Collins on a secure channel. Tell him I said Protocol 7 is active. As her aide hurried to obey, Kate kept her gaze fixed on Earth. The Council believed they understood humanity. They had studied its wars, its conquests, its armies. They mistook survival for savagery. Now they would learn the truth. Humans fought not because they craved war, but because survival demanded it. Her smile widened as she imagined their reaction when they realized what 72 hours of human silence truly meant. Attempts to reach human space had been met with dead silence. Comms arrays that had worked flawlessly for decades suddenly returned only white noise when aimed at human territories. High Chancellor, Vexar said, pacing the length of his command chamber aboard the Council flagship Dominion. His four eyes flicked constantly to the communications console, where aides scrambled to restore links to human space. Smaller delegates had departed to their vessels, but several remained to watch events unfold. Still nothing? Vexar asked his communications officer for the 10th time in an hour. The Draonis technician's clawed hands moved over the panels. No, sir. Complete blackout across all human zones. Our deep space listening post confirmed the same. It's as if they've dropped out of subspace entirely. General Thru appeared in hologram from his adjacent warship. Perhaps they are drafting surrenders. Humans may be crude, yet they recognize overwhelming force when confronted. Vector was unconvinced. He had studied human campaigns for years in preparation for this moment. Humans did not simply fall silent when faced with danger. They argued. They bargained. They pleaded for mercy. This quiet felt wrong, anomalous. Far below, in a bunker network 3 kilometers beneath the Rocky Mountains, President Maria Valdez presided at the head of a conference table, flanked by the nation's top leaders. The complex had been erected during the Third World War and refitted continuously for more than a century. No alien sensor could penetrate its shielding or intercept its transmissions. Report, the President ordered plainly. Admiral Jake Collins stood at attention. Protocol 7 is now in effect, Madam President. All arrays are set to internal modes only. Every ship, station, and colony is maintaining strict radio silence. To the aliens, we have vanished. Excellent. How long until fleet positions are achieved? General Ryan Murphy triggered a holographic map of human space and nearby sectors. Red markers showed known Council assets, while blue indicated human forces. 18 hours until full deployment, he said. Stealth squadrons are en route to target approach vectors. The Council will have no pre-warning. President Valdez inclined her head. She was small, gray at the temples, eyes lined with fatigue. Yet her voice carried the clear authority of someone who had guided humanity through its bleakest chapters. Dr. Park, status of special projects. Dr. Lisa Park rose and opened another layer of the holographic display. Project Lazarus stands ready. All quantum tunnel weapons are primed and slaved to designated coordinates. Council command hubs, major bases, and flagship nodes are queued for simultaneous strikes. Stealth platforms are fully operational across the fleet. Our vessels can approach Council formations undetected. They will not perceive us until we choose to be seen. Captain Benor raised his hand. Ma'am, strike teams are prepared. We've isolated vulnerabilities in their arrays. Council vessels are optimized for conventional engagements against visible fleets. They lack doctrines for countering cloaked assailants. President Valdez surveyed the room, the faces of humanity's guardians, each one the product of decades of preparation for this contingency. Where the Council interpreted human wars as primitive belligerents, those campaigns had served another purpose entirely, species-wide training exercises. Let me be perfectly clear, the President said. The Council has made a grave error. They examined our military moves and perceived chaos, territorial fights, and episodic violence. What they failed to discern was the pattern. She rose and moved toward the central holo map, ready to unveil the tactics honed across generations, coordinated, disciplined, and lethal when survival demanded unity. Their mistake would be to underestimate what unity forged in hardship could achieve and resolve. The holographic map glowed as President Valdez gestured to human. Colonies and outposts spread across contested sectors. Every expansion, every clash, every fortress we've built this past century has been part of a larger design. We have been preparing for this confrontation since first contact. General Murphy inclined his head. The Titan border wars taught us to maneuver through asteroid fields. The Proxima Rebellion trained us in deep infiltration and operating behind enemy lines. The Outer Rim conflicts gave us mastery of supply disruption. Every war fought among ourselves was rehearsal for this one, a war against them. Dr. Park added, while the Council relied on fear and superior numbers, we engineered innovations they cannot fathom. Quantum tunneling gives our weapons instantaneous reach across any distance. Stealth fields render our ships undetectable. We have turned their arrogance into their weakness. Admiral Collins summoned another overlay. The Council commands vast fleets, but they have never contended with an adversary that strikes and vanishes at will. Their entire doctrine assumes direct confrontations and brute strength. They have no answer to guerrilla tactics or shadow warfare. Captain Torres smiled grimly. My operatives have dissected their combat manuals for 2 decades. They fight as if they've never faced true resistance. Their formations intimidate but do not shield against ambushes. When we strike, the shock will be catastrophic. President Valdez resumed her seat. They granted us 72 hours to surrender. They expect panic, bickering, perhaps desperate pleas for leniency. Instead, we are using every minute to position for decisive blows. What of the species bound under Council dominion? Dr. Park asked. Reports suggest many are coerced into service. That is part of our plan, General Murphy replied. We are not only defending Earth, we are offering freedom to any willing to rise against tyranny. Our opening strikes will hit military nodes and leadership centers, never civilian worlds. Admiral Collins rose. The elegance of this campaign is in its clarity. The Council expects a binary choice. Instant surrender or reckless buildup they can crush. They cannot conceive that we have been preparing for this inevitability since before most of their leaders existed. President Valdez studied each figure at the table. In 66 hours, the Council will have its answer, but not through diplomatic couriers. Captain Torres, your units will speak for humanity. Ensure our message is unmistakable. Torres inclined his head. Understood, Madam President. When the moment arrives, they will learn what happens when humanity is threatened with chains. As the session adjourned, Valdez remained seated, gazing at the shifting display. Hundreds of blue markers glided silently through the void, unseen by alien sensors, carrying humanity's reply. Her thoughts drifted to Kate Morrison on New Geneva Station, keeping up the pretense that Earth still weighed surrender, while the real answer advanced in silence toward Council space. The aliens demanded humanity's obedience. In 66 hours, they would discover some species are not meant to kneel. The faint smile that curved the president's lips mirrored the one Morrison had shown when she severed the Council's transmission. Cold, resolute, merciless. The Council armada burst from hyperspace at the edge of Sol like a metallic storm, fury embodied. 200 warships of the line, each a kilometer long, their hulls bristling with planet-cracking arsenals. High Chancellor Vexar stood upon the bridge of his flagship, Dominion, watching with grim satisfaction as the fleet unfolded into battle formation. "Magnificent," he said to General Thra, who stood beside him for the coming reckoning. Vexar floated in the cramped escape pod, the bitter taste of disbelief burning in his throat. Just minutes ago, he had commanded the most powerful armada the galaxy had ever assembled. Now, through the viewport, he saw only the drifting wrecks of his once proud fleet, silent, powerless giants humbled in less than half a minute. Across the void, sleek Terran ships held formation like wolves circling wounded prey. Every human vessel glowed with restrained firepower. A reminder that annihilation had been a choice they deliberately spared him from. A transmission crackled through the pod's receiver. It was Kate Morrison again. Her voice was steady, almost casual, but her words cut sharper than any blade. "You thought you were bringing civilization to savages, High Chancellor. What you really did was train us. Every border war, every rebellion, every act of intimidation. Lessons. You built us into the enemy you feared most." Vexar clenched his claws around the armrest, fury and humiliation warring within him. Kate's image leaned closer, her cold smile unflinching. "You asked for surrender. Now look at your fleet." "That is humanity's answer. Tell your council we do not kneel." The transmission ended. Silence filled the pod, broken only by the faint hiss of life support. Vexar's second heart pounded in despair. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council would hear not pleas but defiance, and the galaxy would never be the same. Torres leaned back in his chair. "High Chancellor, I think you're missing the bigger picture here. This wasn't just a military victory. It was a demonstration of what becomes possible when species work together instead of bowing under fear." Vexar's mandibles twitched in contempt. "Work together? The Council unified the galaxy. We ended the resource wars, silenced the barbarian raiders, and brought order. Do you think chaos disguised as freedom will hold for long?" Torres's gaze hardened. "You didn't unify the galaxy, you shackled it. You mistook silence for peace, obedience for loyalty. You ruled by terror, and now that terror is broken." He leaned forward, voice low but steady. "And as for chaos, humans are no strangers to it. We grew strong in it. We thrived in it. That's what you never understood." The room was silent, save for the faint hum of the ship's systems. For the first time, Vexar seemed unsure. His arrogance faltered under the weight of the truth he could no longer ignore. Across human-controlled space, transmissions carried the same message. The Council was finished. Not replaced by conquerors, but dismantled by those who refused to kneel. For some species, the collapse of tyranny was a relief. For others, it was terrifying. The galaxy trembled at the realization that a new age had begun, one not defined by fear, but by choice. President Valdez's voice, calm yet resolute, spread across the network of liberated worlds. "We did not fight to replace the Council's chains with our own. We fought so every species can choose its future. If you want to stand with us, you will find allies. If you want to fight us, you will find that humanity does not break." On the Council flagship, Torres studied Vexar one last time. "Your era is over, Chancellor. The galaxy belongs to those who can adapt. That's why we're still here, and why your council never stood a chance." Vexar lowered his eyes, not in submission, but in the quiet realization of a truth that even he could not deny. The age of fear had ended. The age of humanity and their allies had just begun, living under the boot of authoritarian control. What do you mean? The stealth systems that made this campaign possible weren't built by humanity alone. We've been working in secret with dozens of species the Council kept oppressed. Scientists, engineers, and strategists from across the galaxy helped make this victory real. Vexar's eyes widened. Impossible. Our security networks would have exposed such collusion. Torres gave a thin smile. Your networks watched for armies and conquests. They never noticed science exchanges, cultural ties, or trade deals. While you ruled by fear, we built bridges between rivals who had hated each other for centuries. That was humanity's true revelation. The wars you thought proved our aggression were training grounds in cooperation. Each taught us to work with old enemies, turn rivalry into trust, and forge unity where none existed. Dr. Park's voice came over comms. Captain Torres, 43 species are requesting to join what they're calling the Liberation Alliance. They ask what comes next. Torres turned to Vexar. That's what comes next, Chancellor. A galaxy bound by choice, not fear? On Nexus Prime, the emergency session dissolved into accusation and chaos. Longtime allies questioned each other's loyalty. The humans could not have built such technology alone, Chancellor Clix snapped. Someone fed them secrets. Perhaps, said General Cork, or maybe we underestimated them. We tracked weapons, not diplomacy. Acting Chancellor Zeftor called for order. What forces remain? The answer chilled the chamber. Human raids had struck every major council stronghold. Remaining fleets were scattered and cut off. We could regroup at frontier stations, Lumina suggested. Cork shook his head. That's exactly what they'd expect. Any massing would be annihilated. Reality pressed in. The Council's power had relied on the belief no single race could defy their unity. Humanity shattered it by doing what the Council never dreamed, uniting past enemies. President Valdez received a secure call from Torres. Madam President, 17 member species are offering surrender. What terms? The same as always, Torres answered. Self-rule, cooperation, and entry into a community of equals, not slaves. Dr. Park added, the psychological shift is immense. Many forgot what freedom felt like. We reminded them. General Murphy warned, without care, the collapse leaves a vacuum. Dozens of species might tear each other apart. Valdez nodded. That's why we stay with the plan. We don't conquer, we liberate. Each chooses their own future. Those who want help will have it. A joint transmission lit the display. Dozens of alien leaders, once divided, now spoke as one. People of Earth, they said, you've shown us freedom is possible. The Council's age is over. A new age of cooperation begins. Valdez smiled at faces of former enemies now united. Humanity's cold smile had carried its message well. Some things are worth blood and sacrifice, and freedom stands at the top. 6 months after the ultimatum, the galaxy was unrecognizable. The neutral world Haven's Rest, once a forgotten mining rock, now served as the seat of a new galactic order. Representatives from 67 species gathered. In the hastily built Congress chamber, delegates worked to form the Free Systems Alliance. Ambassador Kate Morrison stood at the podium, addressing the First Interstellar Congress. Behind her sat beings who had once fought endless wars, now debating trade routes and defense treaties instead of battle plans. The old order was built on fear, Kate said, her voice carrying through translation arrays donated by former council allies. Fear of punishment, fear of uprising, fear of change. Today we are here because we chose hope. Among the audience, former. High Chancellor Vexar sat with council leaders who had accepted cooperation over resistance. Stripped of his regalia, the proud Zapirian looked diminished, but his eyes carried something new, curiosity about the future. From the gallery above, President Valdez watched beside Admiral Collins, General Murphy, Dr. Park, and Captain Torres. The architects of humanity's defiance now guided the fragile peace. Hard to believe it's only been 6 months, Collins murmured. The war was the easy part, Valdez answered. Peace is harder. She was right. The fall of council power left gaps no fleet could fix. Trade webs that had spanned centuries had to be rebuilt, supply chains rewoven, old enemies taught to work as partners. Yet progress was real. In the Kepler sector, insectoid farmers shared techniques with human colonies. Luminina energy beings ran research stations alongside Earth scientists. Even the Draonis warriors now served as peacekeepers for the Alliance. Morrison pressed on. We didn't topple the Council to replace them. We ended their reign to prove species could rule themselves, bound by choice, not chains. A crystalline delegate rose, his translucent form glowing. The humans speak of choice. Yet not all adapt. The Voran still cling to slaves. The Shadow Fleet raids our worlds. How do we deal with predators who refuse to change? The question had haunted months of talks. Freedom allowed choice, but some choices crushed others. Torres rose. That is why we've built rapid response fleets. Any empire that clings to conquest and tyranny will face the Alliance's combined defense. Freedom is not free. Sometimes it must be defended. Debate erupted, freedom versus security. Morrison let them argue. This was the new galaxy. Dialogue instead of decrees, disputes instead of submission. Messy, but real democracy. Dr. Park projected a hologram. Shared knowledge has advanced us faster than we dreamed. Medicine, power, travel. Quantum tunneling merged with insectoid biology, creating new engines. Draonis tactics fused with science to craft perfect defenses. Luminina mastery of energy linked with dozens of alien strengths. Then a chime. The hall fell silent as a vast hologram shimmered into being. A towering alien, armored and multi-armed, spoke through straining translators. Greetings, Milky Way. We are the hegemony of the outer dark, rulers of Andromeda and 17 galaxies more. Your upheaval threatens order that has lasted millennia. This cannot spread. We demand your submission within one rotation. The image vanished, leaving silence. After months of building peace, a new enemy loomed. Morrison stood, her cold smile forming. She glanced at the gathered races, once enemies, now bound in common cause. Some people never learn. Valdez leaned forward. Kate, tell me we're ready. Collins already pulled up tactical feeds. We are. Dr. Park's teams built long-range defenses through Alliance tech sharing. We expected this. Torres addressed the chamber. 6 months ago, the Council tried to force humanity's surrender. Today, the hegemony believes it can subdue the Free Systems Alliance. Our reply should remain unchanged. The chamber filled with urgent voices, but not of fear. Allies debated defense, not submission. Morrison called for order. Honored delegates, she said. This is our chance to prove freedom is universal. The hegemony will learn what the Council learned. Some species will never kneel. Smiles spread across alien and human faces alike, cold and resolute. The Free Systems Alliance had found its first test as won. They would meet it with humanity's signature answer, the cold smile and refusal to surrender.